Good morning, students. In today's class of service marketing, we'll start with a new topic, that is service delivery. In the previous class, we have studied about service scapes. So let us first recap about the previous class. Then we'll start with the today's topic, that is service delivery. So what are service scapes? So the definition of service scapes was the concept of service scapes was first coined by Booms and Bittner. Servicescapes means to emphasize the impact. It was generally this was coined to emphasize the impact of the physical environment in which the service process takes place. So, in order to highlight what is the physical environment in which the service process takes place, that Booms and Bittner coined this concept of service scape. It includes both the exterior and the facilities interior, both. When we mean exterior facilities, exterior means how the building is, where the service will be given, or what is the signatures, what is the type of structure, and facilities interior means what are the kind of equipment used to deliver the service, what is the furnishings, what is the paint, what is the music, what is going on inside the facilities in which the service will be delivered. Service cost also includes other tangibles like the business cards, the stationery, the billing statements, the employee dress, brochures, web page, and virtual service kits. All these things are also included in the service kits because this gives a physical evidence in the marketing of services. So service kits includes all the exterior and interior of the facilities in which the service takes place, service process takes place. It also includes all the other tangibles like the kind of business cards used, the stationery, the kind of stationery used, the quality of the stationery that is used, the billing statements, the kind of printing and billing statements, the employee attire or the dress code that they're following, and the brochures and the web page or the virtual service kit that is being used. So this help in giving the physical evidence about the marketing of services, and everything is included in the service scripts. So this is known as service scripts. Then the basic principle that guides while designing this service scape is the user friendliness and the needs of the ultimate users. So that is the reason the service organization has to keep on investigating and studying about the consumer behavior, what are the needs of the customer, what are the wants of the customer, how the expectations of the customers can be met, how to make the services designed in such a way that the customer can easily access it, can easily use it. So these are the ways in which the service scape can be done. So while designing the service scape, the two things that is on the topmost or the focus of the customer of the service organization is the user friendliness and the needs of the ultimate users. Ultimate users means the people who will use the service. So this is very important while deciding the service scapes. Now, while discussing the service scapes, we have also discussed about the various objectives of the service scapes. So while creating or designing the service scapes, the objectives may be the focus on customers, where will be designing the service scape keeping in eye how the customer will react to their service scape, or how it is user friendly or not, or the needs of the customers that is taken care of or not. Then it is known as focus of on customers. Then it may be also on the focus on employees, where the service scapes in design such a way that the employees can perform better, can do their job better, can do the service delivery better, and will be able to interact better with the consumers, the customers. And also when the service encounter takes place, they will be at each. So what kind of training and development that has to be given, so that comes under focus on employees. Then also the service scapes can also be designed also based upon the focus on the form, where the service scapes are designed in such a way that see that the are built within a particular cost, or the way the service delivery process is there for the particular service organization, the service scapes is accordingly customized to it. So while designing the service scape, the objective may be focus on customer, or focus on employees, or focus on the firm. So this is something we have to keep in mind. Also, we have to understand that while this services scapes are being made, there are certain roles that the service scape performs. First is the total package. But what we mean by package means the total service package that is being delivered to the customers, So the service scripts will be formed in such a way that the package is properly delivered, that the physical environment in which the service is delivered to the customers, it actually meets the expectation of the customer. So this is the coming on the package. Then so the service scripts will be acting as a facilitator. It performs the role of a facilitator because it should be such that servicescape and the physical environment will be such while the delivering of the service will be such that the customer will feel at ease and will be able to interact with the service personnel and be able to get whatever service they desire. So facilitator is also one of the roles of the servicescapes. Then come the socializer role. The role of the servicescapes will be such that it should be form a very informal role, and the customers will be able to speak with the service personnel to get what kind of services want. There will be proper interaction, so there will be no any kind of barrier to the interaction. So servicescapes also form the role of a socializer. Then it's also servicescapes acts as a differential role of a differentiator because the servicescapes of particular service organization is different from the servicescape of another organization. So in order to create a unique identity for the service organization, in order to create a particular perception in the unique perception in the minds of the customer, the servicescape will be designed in such a way that it differentiates the company from its competitors. So these are the various things that we have discussed in the previous class under the heading of service scripts. Now moving to today's topic, that is service delivery, how the service has to be delivered to the customers. So once we understand that service delivery process that it takes place in the physical and that is service scripts, now also understand how the service delivery process takes place and how the service is actually reaching the customer or is availed to the or given to the customers. So we'll start with what is service delivery. Delivery of service differs significantly from that of the manufactured goods. Obviously, because we have already discussed in unit 1 that while discussing that the goods and services are different. So accordingly, the delivery of service will be different from that from manufactured because services are having certain characteristics which is not found in goods, heterogeneity, intangibility. So these are the characteristics that is not found in manufactured goods. So the delivery of service will be quite different from the what is the delivery of manufactured goods. The production of goods is followed by the distribution, whereas service cannot be separated from the service provider. So inseparability is also one of the characteristics of services, which says that that the service once be produced and consumed simultaneously. So in production of goods, this is the difference because it can be produced and can be stored, but the services cannot be stored; it will lose its impact. So the services has to be produced and consumed simultaneously, but this is not the case in case of goods. So what happens in the production of goods? There is a distribution that takes place, whereas in services, since the services cannot be separated from the service provider, so there is a problem and the service delivery has to take place instantaneously. Because of this inseparability characteristics of the channels for most of the services is short and simple. So the distribution channel what is there for the services is very short and simple. The place of distribution service refers to the availability of service, that is when and where it can be purchased. So when we are discussing about the distribution in case of products, it is different, or goods it is different, and for services it is different. In case of services, when we discuss about the distribution services, it refers to the availability of a service as and when it will be placed, it will be available so that the consumers can actually purchase the service. So this is known as the distribution of services. So the special characteristics of services, for example, intangibility, variability, inseparability, have led to the specific form of distribution. So since we will also discussing that due to this special characteristics that the services have, like intangibility, variability, inseparability, which is different from the manufactured goods, the kind of or a form of service distribution is different from that of the goods distribution. So it has to take a specific form. Service products are mostly those where no transfer of ownership takes place and service is simply rented or consumed. Whenever we are talking about goods, the goods is actually sold and there is actually transfer of ownership in case of goods. But in case of services, there are certain due to this peculiar characteristics that the services has, the ownership cannot be transferred. And this, since there is no ownership, transfer of ownership takes place, the service is simply rented or consumed by the consumed. So this is also one of the reasons that is to be kept in mind while designing the service delivery and understanding the service delivery. But it is essential that it must be available, accessible before its consumption. This needs an efficient distribution system. Why we are discussing about the various characteristics of services and how it is different from the goods? Because the service delivery is different from the delivery of goods, and the distribution of goods will be different from the distribution of services. So it is very essential to understand that before the service is actually rented or consumed, it should be made actually available for consumption. And this, for this system, we should have an efficient distribution system that caters to the needs of the customers. The distribution system can be defined as the channels or means used by which the service provider gains access to the potential buyer of the service product. So in this way, when we discuss about the distribution system, it means the channels or the means through which the service provider will gain access to the potential buyer and will be able to deliver the service to the uh, end consumer or the customer. Then the systems that deliver successfully, when there is a delivery of service, when we are having this efficient distribution system, we have to keep in mind that the systems that deliver successfully consist of a well thought out jobs for people with capabilities and attitudes necessary for their successful performance. The equipment, the facilities, and the layouts for effective customer and workflow, and carefully developed procedures aimed at clearly defined objectives. So while having a efficient, when we try to understand, we should have a very efficient service delivery system. Then it means that this is a bundle of a lot of things. Like it consists of people who are having the right qualities, right skills and capabilities and attitude, who will be necessary for delivering the service, for the successful service performance. This is highly required because it is these employees who will be interacting with the customer during in the service encounter, and these are the people who will be providing the service or delivering the service to the customer. So their attitude and performance, for successful performance, their attitude, their capability, their skills, everything is required. Not only this, the kind of equipment they are using for delivering the service, what is the facilities and the layout, what is the kind it is, whether it is user friendly, whether it is something that is easier for the customers to use well, and for effective customer and workflow, careful procedures should be made. So while deciding this service delivery, the system that is being put in place, that should be properly decided, that should be aimed with a clear objectives. So this is all required while deciding how to design the service delivery. They provide sufficient capacity to meet most commonly experienced level of demand efficiently. This can help the customers perceive it, because whenever the customer is buying any product, there is less perceived, because the specification of the product can be easily done before purchase. But while uh, deciding upon to purchase a service, there is a certain percentage attached with the services, because the person do not know how the service will be, whether this will be able to match his expectations or not, will be able to satisfy his needs and needs or wants. So all these things are there. So there is certain perceived risk that is attached with the services. So while providing sufficient capacities of providing the commonly while providing the most commonly experienced levels of demand efficiently, in order to provide these things, this can be all these things can be done to, in order to reduce this perceived risk in the customer's mind. Because if the perceived risk is reduced, then the customer will be more inclined to make purchases from the service organization. And the delivery systems, which often helps ensure that standards of quality are met. So the service delivery system should be designed in such a way that it ensures the standards of service quality. Because once the service is being delivered to the customers, if it does not match the expectations of the customer about the service quality, then the customer will not be satisfied. We want that the service delivery should be done in such a way that the standards of service quality that is expected by the customers are met, so that the customer will be happy with the kind of service they are receiving, and they will be happy with the service quality that they are receiving, and they will be, once they are satisfied, they will be returning for repeat purchases, and also they will be telling about a positive word of mouth to other customers, which is highly essential, because we need in services, customer loyalty is very very important. So the delivery system should be made in such a way that ensures, or it ensures and encourages this customers, that the standards of service quality that they have in their mind, that they will be met, that services perceived by customers are differentiated from competitors, and the barriers to competitive entry are met. So not only this, that the service quality has to be met, but also it has to be seen that once the services are provided to the customers as it is perceived by the customer, it is meeting the expectation of the customers, then this will act as a differentiating factor for the service organization. The service organization can differentiate itself from its competitor, and it can also act as a competitor, as a barrier to this competitive entry. Because since in a particular service there is a particular service organization that masters this particular service category, and the target customers are really satisfied with the particular service organization, the kind of services the service organization gives, then it acts as a barrier in the competitive world, and there is no chance or room for entry of new entrants into the particular industry or particular target market segment. So while designing the service delivery, we have to see that it should ensure that the service quality are met. It should ensure that this service quality should be the satisfaction of the customer should be something that should be differentiating the service organization from its competitors, and it also should act as a barrier to competitive entry and bid. So while creating this delivery system, we have to keep in mind the place and time in which the service will be delivered. So we'll be discussing this under certain heads. First is creating delivery system in place and time. So while this delivery system is made, we have to decide the place and time in which the service will actually be provided to the customers. This is very, very important, because if we have this right amount of, like what we have the proper timing and the proper place in which the service can be given to the customer, the delivered to the customers in a proper way, then the delivery system will be successful and the service organization will be very, very flourishing. So we have to create delivery systems in place and time, proper place and time. So decision on where and how to deliver a service have an important impact on the nature of customer service experiences. So whatever the customer service they are experiencing, the customer is experiencing, so this is greatly impacted by the decision on where, when, and how the service will be delivered to the customers. It is very, very essential, because this will ensure that the customer service experiences are good and the customer's expectations are met, because they determine this and place and time of the delivery of service. They determine the type of encounters, if any, with the service personnel, and the price and other cost incurred to obtain the service. So why this where, when, and how of delivery of service system, that is very, very essential, how it's impact the customer service experiences, because they determine the kind of service encounter they are going to have with the customers, and also they determine the service price and the cost incurred with the obtaining of the service. Like if we say that if a particular service that is being, if we can take the example of education as a service, and a tutor is there for educating certain people. So if a person is, or a student is interested to avail that service in school, the amount of the cost of the service will be different. Or if the student is interested to avail that service in a particular institution, the cost will be different. But when the same teacher or lecturer which comes to the student's home and tutors that student, then the cost will be different. So as per the time and place, the cost, the price of the service will be differentiating, and also it will also determine or impact on the customer service experience. Suppose the student is not able to understand properly in the school or the institution, but because he's shy or is afraid to ask questions, but in the same service being offered in his home, then is home tutor, then the service, the kind of customer experience is having will be more, because he will be much more free to ask his questions and he'll be able to learn more. So the in delivery system, while delivering a service, it is very, very important to understand the place and time in which the service has to be given to the customers. Several factors shape the distribution and delivery strategy. There are several factors that actually shape the distribution and delivery strategies. The methods of service delivery are as follows. There are certain methods that has been coined, so that there in which the service can be delivered to the customers. So we'll understand one by one. The first thing is customer visit the service site. What happens here, in order to avail the service, the customer actually visits the service site in order to get the service. So what happens in this? The convenience of service factory locations and operational schedules assumes great importance when a customer has to be physically present either throughout the service delivery or even only to initiate and terminate the transaction. So this first delivery in place where or time is that the customer actually has to visit the site in order to avail the service. Either he has to remain throughout the service delivery, like when you are going for a health checkup or when we are going for a salon to have a haircut or going to a spa, then you have to remain throughout the service delivery, or in order to initiate or terminate the transaction. If you're going for a bank in order to take a check or start a new FD, or are going to terminate a particular FD or a particular SIP what you're having, so it may be that also. So here the customer has to actually visit the service site in order to get the service. Elaborate statistical analysis in the form of retail gravity models is sometimes used to aid the decision on where to locate the supermarkets relative to the prospective customer's home environment. So an example has been given where it shows that in a retail which is both goods is attached and also services is included in the retail. So it's a mixed service. So what happens in retailing? The where to locate the supermarkets, that is decided, because the customer has to visit the retail market in order to get the product and also the service. So it should be placed in such a way relative to the customer's homes and workplaces nearer to the places, so that the customer will be able to visit and to get the service. Traffic counts and pedestrian counts helps to establish how many prospective customers pass the certain locations in a day. So these traffic counts are also used for pedestrian counts. How many people are passing the uh, your shop is very important in order to understand what is the kind of location, whether the location is right, whether the service that we are giving is actually mm, known to the people, known to the customer, whether the target market is able to understand where your shop is, what kind of services you give. So for example, like a theater or a barber shop or a pub service, all these things are services. Like a theater or a barber shop, so your barber shop should be centrally located, so that whenever a person is moving around or going through this your particular salon or barber shop, he or she should be able to see your barber shop. So if the number of traffic counts or pedestrian counts, this gives an idea whether the prospective customer actually passed through the location. So when more and more customers pass through that location, the actually the location of the place from where the service can be availed, then the visibility of your shop, visibility of the service site will increase. So this will result in larger, better performance of the service site and service organization, also better profits level. So this is the first way where the customer visit the service site in order to avail the service. Now the second type is service firms calling customers. So under this, in such a situation or transaction, the customer need not move to their from their premises, where it is a home or an office, to avail the service. So in the previous one, they were going to the service area in order to get the service, but here they did not move from their apartments or from homes or from their offices in order to avail the service. The employees of the service organizations call on the customers and perform the service at that desired location. So what happens whenever a requisition for service is raised by the customers, or whenever the employees of the service organization call upon the customers, they perform the service at the desired location. For example, postal services, security services, personal services that is being provided to the customers. So all kind of these services are generally the service organization calls upon the customers and ask them where and which place and what time they want that the service should be provided to the customer at the desired location. So in this way, this is the second way in which the service firms actually calls upon the customers and ask them where they want the service and how the service delivery should be done. The third kind is like service provider and customer transact at arm's length. Neither the service provider has to go near the customer, or neither the customer has to come to the service site, but the service is being delivered to the customers. So in such a transaction, there is no need to have a personal contact and face-to-face encounter with the service provider and the service consumer. So in both the cases, in the previous two cases, there was service encounter, the chance of service encounter, but there is no chance of service encounter in this third category, where the service is delivered at an arm's length, and the service provider and the service consumer do not come face to face, or do not come into personal contact with each other. Services can be produced and consumed with the help of tangible equipments provided for the purpose. So there are certain equipments that has been made which provide the service in for the service provider, and the service consumer can get this service from this using this help of tangibles and equipment that are put in place. For example, telecom services, credit card services, broadcast networks, or ATMs. So in all these things, the service is provided by the service provider and the service is availed by the service consumer, but neither the service consumer or the service provider, they come in personal contact with each other, and the service has been actually delivered to the customer at arm's length. So these are the various ways in which the service delivery system, the place and time can be decided. Now, while creating this delivery surveillance system in place and time, the following things has also to be kept in mind. How should service managers make decisions on the places and where the service is to be delivered, and what time when it will be available depends upon the customer's needs, expectations, competitive activity, and the nature of the service operation. So while deciding upon the place and time of the services, how the services will be given, what time the services will be given, in what place the services will be provided to the or delivered to the customer, there are certain things that has to be kept in mind. These are the things that actually decide the place and time of the service delivery. First is the customer need, how the customer needs the service, where the customer needs the service, when the customer needs the service, what are the expectations of the customer, what is the competitive activities that is going on, what are the competitors doing, how the competitors are delivering the service to the customers, uh, so prospective customers or the customer, how they are reaching out the customers, and how the service delivery is done by the competitors. All these things are also the nature of the service operation, whether the service can be given at the doorstep of the customer, whether the service can be given at an arm's length, or whether the service consumer needs to visit the service site in order to avail this service. Depending upon the nature of the service operation also, we can decide the place and time where the service delivery can be done, so the service delivery system can be put in place. Deciding where to locate a service facility that will be visited by the customer involves very different considerations, from decisions related to locating the backstage elements, where consideration regarding productivity, access to labor and cost are often key determinants. So while deciding upon the place and time, we have to decide where the facility has to be opened, that involves certain key ingredients, and then what are the backstage element that has to be kept in mind, what are the considerations like productivity, access to labor, what are the cost involved in delivering that service at the particular place and time. All these are key determinants. Similarly, question on customer convenience and preference are also important. Like as I've already discussed, like these place and time of the service delivery system can be depending upon the customer needs and expectation. That means how the customer wants the convenience, or what is the preference of the consumer, whether the customer wants the service at the doorstep, whether the customer is willing to go to the service site in order to avail the service. This is to be kept in mind, because these are the things, the needs, expectation, competitive activity, the nature of the service operation, customer convenience, preference, the amount of productivity they want, the service organization want, the access to the labor it has, what is the cost involved in delivering the service to the customer. So all these things to be kept in mind while designing or creating this delivery system in place and time. Frequently purchased services. Generally, some found that frequently purchased services not easily differentiated from competitors need to be easily accessible to the customers' home and workplaces. Examples are retail banks or quick service restaurant. So those services that are not easily differentiated from the customer, that are more or less same for with the customers, with the competitors, the services has to be very easily accessible from the customer's home and workplaces, so that the customer will be willing to avail the services from the particular service organization. Example are retail banks and quick service restaurant. Like your all quick service restaurant, they provide the more or less same similar services. So these should be easily accessible to the customers, because the customers, since they are not much differentiated from the competitors, they will not avail the services from the quick service restaurant if they are not properly accessible to the customers. So when frequently purchased services which cannot be differentiated from the competitors, these are this kind of services that is being given by a service organization, then the service organization should be able to provide or service to the customer easily accessible from their homes and workplaces. However, it should be kept in mind when the service, when the customer may be willing to travel farther or moving to going to the service set for specialty services that fits their needs well. So whenever the customer feels that a service in particular specialty service is required by the customer, then the customer will be interested to move to get that to that location in order to get that service. Like if you want the diagnosis by a particular doctor, or you want to avail the coaching for a particular education, like people who are interested in this medical and engineering, they go to Kota in order to get the coaching. So where the customers is required interested in the specialty services, then the customer will be willing to move further in order to get these services, because he knows that if he goes to that site or go to the place and time, then he will get the services as per his needs and wants and expectations. So in this way, the place and time of the service delivery system can be decided. In the past, most retail and professional services in industrialized countries followed a traditional, rather a restricted schedule and a limited service availability of around 40 to 50 hours a week. Previously, the services that were being delivered to the customers, the services mostly in industrialized or traditional pattern, they were industrialized countries in trade that followed a traditional pattern. There was a restricted schedule and a limited availability of services. Generally, 40 to 50 hours the service organization was opening in a week, and accordingly the services were given. But today, the situation is different due to the development of technology, due to development of this internet technology. What has happened, the services have become very highly responsive. So certain highly responsive service operations are that requires a standard 24 into 7 services. What does mean by 24 into 7? That means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the world, the service is being provided to the customers. So depending upon the needs of the customer, the expectation, the kind of competitors activity that is going on, the customer convenience, the cost, the accessible labor that is there, the backstage elements, all these things, and the convenience and the preference of the customer, the services particularly decided where the place and time in which the services has to be given to the customers. So in today's class, we have understood what is service delivery. We have also understood how to deliver services and how it is different from the goods. And we have also understood how creating a delivery system in place and time. So please go through the video. I will be sending you the notes digitally. Go through that. If you have any doubts, contact me. No need to panic. And finally, thank you for your attention.